Hi everybody, welcome back. It's November 5th, 2023, and we're back on the moon again today with the Worldwide Telescope. Recently I got together with my brother and I said, hey, I want to show you some cool pictures. So I brought up a few pictures, which is something I don't really like to do because there's no background, there's no context, there's just some pictures, you know. And so anyway, I brought up these pictures and I said, I'm talking about the buildings and the layout and everything, and my brother's behind me, he's looking over my shoulder. And I said, so, God, you know, what do you think of these buildings? I mean, isn't this cool? And he says, well, I don't know. I don't have anything to relate it to. Wow, that really hit me like a ton of bricks. And it made me realize that there's a lot of people out there that probably in the very same boat. You know, talking to Ben recently, he says, you know, Tom, he says, it's the darndest thing. He says, when I show people these pictures, they just go blank. He says, I think it's some kind of mind control. And I don't know if there's, you know, mind control, but at least in the case of my brother, it was just no context. He just could not see or realize what it was he was looking at. Yeah, the pictures are interesting looking, but you know, just couldn't really understand them. And so I decided that I needed to try and show more pictures, more angles. You know, some are dark, some are light, so try and help you see what's actually here. You know, just think if you know, if we were looking at an alien city that was, I don't know, based on the ground or sort of organic looking with holes in the ground and all, you know, really, really strange stuff. I mean, how would we know what we're looking at, right? So at least with these pictures, they're a little bit more relatable. We can see more structures. We can see what appear to be square buildings or rectangular buildings. Now, in this picture, like many of the ones that we've seen from the moon recently, we see these very long rectangular shaped objects, and these have been become known as bars. So we refer to these as bars, and these bars are very longitudinal. They construction on these is from left to right, and if you look closely, and this is the key right here, is to look closely. The devil is in the details, and the more that you can look closely and see what's on these bars, and you'll see that they are covered with various sized buildings, all lined up going left to right. And then there's also the vertical buildings, and the vertical buildings are much more difficult. They've been much more difficult, and I've had more success in clearing up these vertical buildings. And so what you're going to see, and I'd like you to concentrate on looking at these vertical buildings, and we're looking for shadow on the left side and brightness on the right side. Not all the pictures depict that very well. Some of these pictures are from the previous video. I threw a few in. They're just too good to not look at again. But mostly all new pictures. And I've had quite a bit of luck to begin clearing up these vertical buildings. And it's really important because when we look at these pictures, and you see all of this vertical brightness and darkness, it really messes up the picture. It makes it look like a mess. But if you can focus on those buildings, those vertical buildings, and start picking out the shadow on the left and the brightness on the right, you know, some pictures are better than the others. But if you can do that, then the picture begins to make more sense. And, you know, the thing is, and I need to give a little bit of background. First of all, you know, these are satellite pictures, and just like Google Earth, that's what they do. They take satellite pictures and then they stitch it onto the globe, And then and that's what Google Earth is. Well, this is from the Worldwide Telescope. It works exactly the same way, and they've taken these satellite pictures, stitch them onto the picture of the moon, and then it works just like Google Earth. So that's kind of the context of how this works. Now, when we're looking at these pictures, by the way, these pictures are all from the dark craters on the South Pole. This is from one crater on the South Pole, and many of the craters look alike. They look very, very similar. They have, most all of them have bars, and they all have real similarities, and some are very, very different. And now, one thing we know for sure is that when we're looking at this pattern in the crater, we know that, for one thing, it's not rocks. We know it's not regolith or sand. So we have this pattern that's not rocks and not sand. We have images in that pattern that show shadow, which means that there's something there. And in this case, we have we have lots and lots of buildings, and not unlike other places in the solar system, the population density is over the top. It's incomprehensible is what it is. And but the interesting thing is that the moon, with the patterns that the moon has in these dark craters, is unto itself. We don't see any of those kinds of patterns anywhere else but the moon. And that's going to remain a really, really big mystery as to what that is. And the really odd thing about it is these patterns, they're so incredible, they're so varied. There's just the most unique photographs, images you're ever going to see. And I mean, the thing is, when they're living there, they don't see that. It's only seen from high altitude. So, it's anybody's guess on what that's all about. I just can't imagine. It's certainly not a camouflage, because you can see it. It actually draws your attention. So I don't know what that's all about, but that's what we have. We have these incredible patterns. And the patterns are made up of mostly, and much of the time, of bars, and the bars are made up of buildings. Now, this picture here is from slightly above the concentric line. We've talked about the concentric lines before. They go from the North Pole to the South Pole. I don't know how many of them there are. Maybe 100. I don't know for sure. And we don't even know what they are. They look like just dark lines, and all these lines are dark buildings, for the most part, as far as we can tell. And this area we're looking at here right now is more relatable to us. These are square buildings, rectangular buildings, the type of structures that we're used to seeing here on Earth. It's only when we get into the bars where you have that, that left to right, that longitudinal building, that's so unique. But it's alien, right? I mean, it is alien. So, I'm going to have a link in the description for the Worldwide Telescope. So if I'm going to sit here and tell you this is alien, then why should you believe me, right? I mean, I do the very best I can, and I tell people what I think things are. I am an amateur, but I'm going to put that link in the description, and you can go look for this stuff yourself. It's not difficult. I mean, it literally takes you, once you click on that link, you can be looking at that stuff within 10 seconds. Okay, So you can do that yourself. This isn't something that I've somehow created, or, you know. So, you know, this stuff is there. It's on the ground. And you're looking at an alien city. I'm thankful it isn't just hills with holes in them or something, you know, some kind of weird, really weird something, because we would not be able to relate to that at all. This is at least somewhat closer to the type of thing that we can relate to. So I've showed this little grouping of buildings right in the middle here, and look at the vertical structures below it and around the area here, and you'll see, maybe not in this picture here, but in several of them, you'll see these vertical buildings with darkness on the left side and brightness on the right side, and that is really the know-all, tell-all for, you know, for proving actually that this stuff is here. It's actually here. Coming up next video, I have a big announcement. Ben PELLOM has made yet another discovery on the moon, and something completely different that we haven't seen before, from a different area altogether. And while there are going to be similarities, it is from a completely different area. So we're really excited about looking into this new these new pictures coming up in the next video. So yeah, it's a super busy place. It is hard to relate to, no doubt about that. You know, in every case, in every picture of the solar system, the population density is, first of all, the most difficult thing to get over as far as trying to relate to it, because with that kind of density, it's just beyond, you know, it's just beyond our ability to relate to it. You know, we're used to getting outside and stretching our legs a little bit. You know, I don't think they do that here, pretty sure. Although there has been quite a bit of conversation about there being atmosphere on the moon. Certainly, Bruce Sees All has seen that quite a bit, and other astronomers have seen it, and there's been a lot of discussion about it. So there's at least some kind of atmosphere on the moon, but I don't know if it's the kind where you can get out and go for a walk. Not that you could find any place to walk to, at least that's out in the open. And I've changed these pictures up a lot. I want you to be able to see, you know, you have to perceive what's here. And that's the other thing, I touched on it before. You really need to focus in and look at the details in these pictures. Look at what is standing up in front of whatever's behind it. You know, that'll give you a little bit of depth perception. If you see a tall black thing and whiteness behind it, and the black is blocking out that whiteness, well, that gives you a little bit of a almost a 3D vision in a 2D picture. And also, anytime you can focus in on looking at the smaller buildings, you know, we tend to just look at this as a kind of a mess, and really we focus in on just the large stuff. And like in this picture, all these vertical buildings, I mean, it really messes with your eyes. It makes you want to sort of glaze over. But this is the time when you really need to focus in and look at these bars. Look at what's on top of the bars. Look at what's in front of the bars. Those kinds of details will bring this home for you. And so I've tried all different kinds of angles, too much contrast, too much brightness, too much exposure, not enough exposure. Everything's in the grayscale. So hopefully, you'll be able to perceive this a little bit better. These kinds of pictures and these kinds of videos are not going to go away. These are way too important to know that we have this over our heads and we don't know anything about it. Recently, just a couple nights ago, I was watching some really interesting things on UFOs, and a lot of talk about where they come from and everything, and it's always some far distant place. But these people on the moon and people in our solar system have been around for a very, very, very long time. People have said that aliens have been on Earth since the time of the dinosaurs. That's 240 million years ago. And when you see the type of construction that's all over our solar system, you have to think that it's got to be, a couple 100 million years old. It's got to be. And so if you have a civilization a couple 100 million years old, we can't even imagine what they can do, right? So these flying saucers and the Tic Tac and all of this stuff, it doesn't have to come from 10 light years away. It's coming from our own solar system. These people have the technology. They do. And and so this whole thing about what's on the moon and why we can't see it, if they don't want us to see it, we're not going to see it. However they do it, if it's going to be a like a cloaking device, or a hologram, or even if it's just mind control, we're not going to see it. I mentioned in the last video, I think the misinformation about what is on the moon started long before the space program, before we even thought about going to the moon, back in the, 1800s. These folks have been around so long that they started the process a long time ago of, shall we say, obfuscating what's on the moon. I'm not just talking about visually, but mentally. They've put it into the human psyche of what's here, and it's pervasive, and it is still going on today. And this whole thing about the moon landing, it's, to me, it's almost embarrassing to say that I don't think it happened. I've always wanted it. I've always wanted to believe it was true. I always did believe it was true. But when you start looking at what's up there with all these pictures, you cannot help but to come to the conclusion that, that we didn't land there. And I'm sad and embarrassed. It seems unpatriotic, but I can't help it. These pictures all say something very, very different. So these people that live here, or whatever they are, don't want us to know they're there, and they have the technology and they have the time to keep that away from us. And by time, going back a couple 100 years, heck, one individual up there probably lives that long. That's why there's so many of them. So they begin the process of planting into the human psyche what's there, and so they want us to believe there's nothing there, and then that's what we believe. You know, this whole thing about aliens and technology, you know, we just crawled out of the bushes here not that long ago, right? You've heard me say it before, probably several times. You know, we started getting smart about 100 years ago around the time of Einstein, right? And what do we know? We don't know anything. We don't know anything. You know, even if these folks were around for just 1 million years, I mean, what would we know in 1 million years from now? Can you imagine? No, actually, you can't. I don't think you can. Think of what we've learned in the last 100 years. Times that by 10. Okay, that's 1,000 years. What are we going to know in 1,000 years? You know, times that by 10. 100,000 years. What are we going to know in 100,000 years? Times 10 again, 1 million years. You know, times 100. What about 100 million years? If these folks don't want us to know what's there, we're not going to know. And we have begun to get, you know, learn technology, and people or channels like me that try to show what's there. Well, you know, it comes down from the top. This is going to be suppressed, you know, censored. And it is. It's absolutely censored. So, you know, all we can do is just keep doing what we're doing and hope that more and more people will catch on. And I don't know where it would go from there. You know, even if most of the people in the United States believe there's something more there, I don't think it would matter. I think we would be censored, and that would be it. You know, we're just never going to really get to know, unless the aliens want us to know. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you soon, and we're looking forward to these new areas on the moon. Bye now.